Good evening. The US and the UK have chosen not to sign the final statement of the French-hosted Artificial Intelligence Summit. However, around 60 other countries did. Some 100 countries and 1,500 participants took part in debating the impact of AI on the public, the potential applications of the technology, and its regulation and responsible use. Louise Miner has more.
The Paris Artificial Intelligence Summit's declaration states that AI should be inclusive, open, ethical and safe. It's called the Statement on Inclusive and Sustainable Artificial Intelligence, and neither the United States or Britain signed up to it. US Vice President J.D. Vance told Europeans that their massive regulations on AI could strangle the technology. He rejected the content moderation, in his own words, as authoritarian censorship.
Many of our most productive tech companies are forced to deal with the EU's Digital Services Act and the massive regulations it created about taking down content and policing so-called misinformation. And of course, we want to ensure the internet is a safe place. But it is one thing to prevent a predator from preying on a child on the internet, and it is something quite different to prevent a grown man or woman from accessing an opinion that the government thinks is misinformation.
However, the US did not immediately explain its reason for not being a signatory. A spokesperson for British Prime Minister Keir Starmer says that discussions were ongoing and that Britain was joining other initiatives and that the UK will sign when it's in the national interest. The European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is pledging billions for AI development, saying that it'll improve healthcare, drive research and innovation. Meanwhile, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres expressed concern that developing countries risk being left behind as countries scramble to develop these type of technologies. Around 60 countries did sign, including the European Union, China and Germany, among others. One thing is for sure, AI is fast becoming a new innovation that's going to continue to change the way we live our lives. Louise Miner for A News.
Well, China too was part of this summit, and Chinese experts were keen to stress the positive implications of the emergence of DeepSeek.
Many enterprises in China are applying various aspects of artificial intelligence. They have also made significant contributions to the global artificial intelligence ecosystem. A recent example that everyone can see is DeepSeek, which indeed has the potential to bring about a new and different pathway for the entire development of artificial intelligence.
Well, let's go to New York now and dig a bit deeper into this story with Hyperframe Research CEO Stephen Dickens. Stephen, it's always great to hear from you. What do you make of this then? US, UK reluctance, but other countries seemingly enthusiastic about this AI summit.
I think you've got to break it down into two parts. Let's talk about the US piece first. We saw over 60 countries sign up to this, including China, which was interesting for me. Obviously, France got on board hosting the summit. But J.D. Vance, the vice president, was pretty vocal in his remarks. I think you've also got to think about the role that David Sachs is playing in the administration. David's now the crypto and AI czar in the new administration. He's got a Silicon Valley background, comes from the PayPal mafia. I think looking at kind of his background, he's going to be very anti-regulation, doesn't see the European Union as a hotbed for innovation. So he's going to be behind, I think, some of the administration's policies and posturing here. And then obviously J.D. Vance was the mouthpiece for that. So I think that's the US piece. The UK piece is interesting for me. Is this them posturing for a trade deal with the US? We've seen Keir Starmer take a sort of the UK Prime Minister take a very interesting posture to the new Trump administration. Is this the UK kind of leaning into its Brexit position and distancing itself from its European counterparts and trying to get closer to the US? That's the piece. So I think you've got the US piece doesn't surprise me. The UK piece really does.
Okay, Stephen, well, plenty more tech news, interesting things going on over the last few days. What's been catching your eye?
Well, keeping up with the news at the moment and keeping up with the analysis is really tough. One of the big things that obviously hit this week was Elon Musk tabling an offer to acquire OpenAI for over 97 billion. That led to a spat on X, his social media platform, between him and Sam Altman, with Sam Altman countering that he was going to buy the social media platform off Elon. I think when you get past the rhetoric, the interesting piece is this a move by Elon, who's in a legal situation with OpenAI around some of the governance structure of that company? I went down the rabbit hole. Under Delaware law, there's these Revlon rules that come from a ruling a few years ago with regard to the makeup company Revlon around disclosure when a bid is tabled. Is this a legal posturing move for Elon in that other case to try and force some of that unusual corporate structure of OpenAI to really come to the front and the fore so that he can help his case out on the flip side? So, yes, that obviously caught the news. A couple of other things came up for me this week. The DOJ, Department of Justice in the US, had blocked and filed a suit to block HP's acquisition of Juniper. 13 other regulators have approved this, including the UK, including China, including the EU. So this seems to me to be a carryover from the previous administration. And the issue there is they're citing wireless LAN competition against Cisco. Really bad position, in my opinion, from the DOJ around looking at some of the market share statistics. Obviously, Cisco's a big player in this market, but HP, in their response to the DOJ's case, cited that there's 8 other players in this market, and it's not as concentrated as the DOJ was saying. So that's one piece. I think that's going to resolve itself. I think that's a hangover from the Biden administration, and I think the Trump administration and its posture on big tech M&A activity is really going to change that. And then the final thing that came up from the region that your network is based in, interesting news this week on Lenovo breaking ground on a new manufacturing facility. They were at an event in Riyadh this week. I went out to Lenovo's factory a couple of years ago in Hungary. This is a significant investment in the Middle East and African region. This is Lenovo adding to its global manufacturing base and really starting to posture and position itself as a truly global player beyond some of its and beyond some of its roots, and really look to provide further AI manufacturing capability in the region. Joint relationship with the Saudi government there, private partnership, really going to be fascinating to see how that develops in the coming years.
Thanks, Stephen. Always good to get your analysis. Stephen Dickens for us there in New York. Well, that is all we have time for on this edition of Newshour. Please stay with us for plenty more news and analysis. And from all of us here in Baku, we wish you a very pleasant evening ahead.